Win free airtime with hashtag #LearnOn1. Share your comments on the lessons. WhatsApp your feedback, name and town to 081 200 6659. Hashtag #LearnOn1. Invite learning in.
One Africa TV's hashtag #LearnOn1 and Hollard Life are teaming up to give lucky teachers an awesome goodie hamper. All you have to do is tell us if you'll recommend hashtag #LearnOn1's free, quality, supplementary lessons to your students. Simply SMS a yes or a no, including your name, the town you live in, and the school you teach at. It's that easy. Invite learning in today with hashtag #LearnOn1 and Hollard Life. Competition closes on 16 October 2020. Standard T's and C's and SMS rates apply. For more information, visit learnon1.org.
Good morning, Namibia. Welcome back to MyZone Online School. I'm Mr. Sean Diergaard, and my special friend is back today as well again. Before we can start with our lesson, my friend, let's sanitize. We spray on our hands. Kids at home, please use your sanitizer. We have our mask on, and then we see social distance. Let's spread out. Spread, spread, spread. Yes. Now we have our social distance. Today's topic is expanded notation and rounding off. Okay, kids, let's start with expanded notation. But before we can start with expanded notation, let's first see what is expanded notation. And I hope you have your booklets in front of you. And we look on page 22. Now let's read. What is expanded notation? Expanded notation is also known as decomposition of numbers or breaking up numbers when you're writing numbers in expanded notation. Here we write each digit according to its value. Remember with our first lesson, we talked about place value and we talked about value. Now, in decomposition or expanded notation of numbers, we write numbers according to their values. Now, if we go to the board, let's try the first two examples. Let's go to our chalkboard. Here we have 621. Now, this is the number. Now they want us to write that number in expanded notation. So we're going to break up the numbers according to their values. My friend, you have got your book in front of you. Are you ready? Let's start. The first number we're going to write in its value is the 6. Now we need to find out what is the value of the 6. Going back to place value, we know the 1 is a unit, the 2 is a 10, and the 6 is a 100. And according to the place value, that 6 value is 600. So we write 600 plus. What is the value of the 2? The 2 is in the place of the 10, and that means the value is 20. Plus the value of the 1. The 1 is a place of the units, and that gives us a value of 1. Now that's one way of writing expanded notation. Are we together, my friend? That's one way of writing expanded notation. 600 plus 20 plus 1. But there's also another way where we use multiplication. So let's see how that way works. We have 6 times 100. And we all know 6 times 100 equals 600. Plus 2 times 10, And we know 2 times 10 equals 20, plus 1 times 1, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So that is 2 ways how we can write numbers in expanded notation. Let's try our second example. 5,087. Are you following? 5,087. Let's write it. What is the first number? The first number is the 5. What is the value of the 5? According to our place value, we know the 5 is in the place of 1,000, and that gives it a value of 5,000. Plus, we don't have any hundreds, so we write 100. Then we go over to the 8. What is the value of the 8? The 8 is in the place of the 10, and that gives it a value of 80. Plus, what is the value of the 7? The value of the 7 is 7, because it's in the place of the 7. So 5,087 is written as 5,000 plus 0 to show that we've got no hundreds, plus 80 plus 7. Now let's try it with the multiplication. 5 times 1,000, that is equal to 5,000. Plus, we just write 0 to indicate that there's no hundreds, plus 8 times 10, that is equal to 80. And then lastly, we have 7 times 1, which is equal to 7. Now going back to our book, we will see there are lots more examples. Let's see number 3. 23,678. That is equal to 20,000 plus 3,000 plus 600 plus 7 plus 8. Or if we use the multiplication, it's 2 times 10,000 plus 3 times 1,000 plus 6 times 100 plus 7 times 10 plus 8 times 1. Then we've got one more example, 89,704. It's quite a big number. If you write it in expanded notation, the 8, the value is 80,000 plus 9,000 plus 7,000 plus 0 plus 4. And if we use the multiplication part, then we say 8 times 10,000, which is equal to 80,000 plus 9 times 1,000, which is equal to 9,000 plus 7 times 100, which is equal to 700 plus 0 times 10, which is equal to 0, and 4 times 1, which is equal to 4. So this is where they give us the number and they want us to write it in expanded notation. Now let's see. They also say expressing numbers written in expanded notation as ordinary numbers. Now sometimes a number is already written in expanded notation form, and then we should write it as an ordinary number. When writing a number in expanded notation form as an ordinary number, we just add the different values together to give us one number. Now let's go into our books on page 23. Here we've got a few examples. Now we see here they already gave us the expanded notation part. Here they already broke up the numbers. 600 plus 50 plus 8. Now they just want it as one number. So what I do is I add 600 plus 50 plus 8, and that is equal to 658. Number 2, 7,000 plus 500 plus 60 plus 3. If we add it together, it will give us 7,563. My friend, are we still enjoying this lesson? Yes, she's enjoying it so much, and I hope you guys at home is also enjoying it. Let's go over to number 3. Now we see number 3 is written a little bit differently. Here it's 90 plus 80,000 plus 2 plus 7,000 plus 600. Now here we see when they wrote the expanded notation, they mixed it all up. They didn't write it according to the real values. They mixed up the values. So what we need to do first, we need to first arrange them in the correct order, and then we can add them together. So we're going to arrange them from the smallest number to the biggest. So our first big number is 80,000 plus 700 plus 600 plus 90 plus 2. And if we add it together, that gives me 87,692. Remember, we first arranged from the biggest value to the smallest value, and then we added together. Number 4, 50 plus 9 plus 200 plus 60,000 plus 1,000. Remember, we first need to arrange them in the correct order, and then only we can add. So we add them from the biggest value to the smallest. So let's arrange. We will get 60,000 plus 1,000 plus 200 plus 50 plus 9. And if we add it together, that gives us 61,259. So remember, even although they mixed it up, firstly, just arrange it from the biggest value to the smallest value, and then we add it together. So that is what expanded notation is. Okay, kids, we're still busy on page 23 with rounding of numbers. Now, in rounding off, there's certain rules we need to follow. Let's look at the rules of rounding off. When we round off numbers, we look at two different place values. We look at the number that must be rounded off, and we look at the number just behind it. A number can only become bigger if the other number is 5 and more. If the other number is 4 or less, the rounding of number stays the same. Let's read that rule again. Me and my friend, we're also reading. When we round off numbers, we look at two different place values. We look at the number that must be rounded off and the number just behind it. A number can only become bigger if the other number is 5 and more. If the number is 4 or less, the rounding of number stays the same. Now let's go over to rounding off to the nearest 10. Let's read. When rounding off to the nearest 10, we focus on the tens and the units. Why do we focus on the tens? Because the 10 is the one that will change. If the units are less than 5, the tens will stay the same. If the units are 5 or more, then the tens will become 1 bigger. So when we round off to the nearest 10, we find the 10, the number in the 10th place. That is the number that will either change or become 1 bigger. And we focus on the units. If the unit is 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, the 10 will become 1 bigger. If the units are 4, 3, 2, 1, then the 10 will stay the same. Now let's look at the example. Rounding off to the nearest 10. I hope you still have your books in front of you. And then we read 58 rounded off to the nearest 10. Here we look at the units. The units is more than 5, so that allows the 10 to become 1 bigger. So if we go to our example, we will say our unit is an 8. 8 is bigger than 5, and that allows the 5 to become 6, and 58 rounded off to the nearest 10 becomes 60. Example 2. 5,684 rounded off to the nearest 10. We first need to find the number in the 10th place, that is the 8. So we will focus on the 8 and we will focus on the 4. Then we read in brackets, the unit is less than 5, so the 10 stays the same, meaning the unit cannot change the 8. So the 8 will stay the same, and 5,684 rounded off to the nearest 10 becomes 5,680. Now we turn to page 24 of our book. My friend is also turning her page. Rounding off to the nearest 100. Let's read. When rounding off to the nearest 100, we focus on the hundreds and the tens. If the tens are less than 5, the hundreds will stay the same. If the tens are 5 or more, the hundreds will become 1 bigger. Let's see our examples. Rounding off to the nearest 100. 183 rounded off to the nearest 100. We find the 100, that is the number that will either become 1 bigger or stay the same. And we look at the 10. If the 10 is 5 and more, the 100 will become 1 bigger. So let's see. There they say, the 10s are more than 5, so that means the 100 becomes 1 bigger. So the 10 is an 8, which is more than 5, meaning that will change the 100, and the 100 becomes 2. So 183 is rounded off to the nearest 200. The second example, 45,740, rounded off to the nearest 100. Guys and girls, I hope we are still together. We find the number in the place of the 10 and the number in the place of the 100. Then we read, the 10 is less than 5, so the 100 stays the same. Our 10 is a 4, meaning it cannot change the 7, and 45,740 is rounded off to 45,700. Rounding off to the nearest 1,000. When we round off to the nearest 1,000, here we focus on the thousands and the hundreds. Now let's look at our first example. Rounding off to the nearest 1,000. 5,390. Let's read what it says in our brackets. The hundreds are less than 5, so the 1,000 stays the same. If we look at our example, we see our 100 is a 3, so it cannot change our 1,000. Our 1,000 stays the same, and that is rounded off to the nearest 5,000. 56,679 rounded off to the nearest 1,000. The hundreds are more than 5. That means the thousands becomes 1 bigger. Our 100 is a 6, and that means it can change our 1,000. And 56,679 rounded off to the nearest 1,000 becomes 57,000. And lastly, we have rounding off to the nearest 10,000. When we round off to the nearest 10,000, we focus on the 10,000 and the thousands. For example, rounding off to the nearest 10,000, 12,800 rounded off to the nearest 10,000. Let's read. The thousands are less than 5, so the 10,000 stays the same. My 1,000 is a 2. Are we together, my friend? We see the 1,000 is a 2, and that cannot change the 10,000. The 10,000 stays the same, and 12,800 rounded off to the nearest 10,000 becomes 10,000. Number 2, quite a big number. 78,978. Rounded off to the nearest 10,000. Let's read what we said in brackets. The thousands are more than 5, so the 10,000s become 1 bigger. We find our 1,000, we see it is an 8, that is more than 5, and that can change my 10,000. So my 10,000 becomes 1 bigger, and when I round it off, then it becomes 80,000. Now, boys and girls, if we turn to page 25 of our book, we will see there's a really nice activity for you guys to do. The activity is based on expanded notation and rounding off. Number 1, write the number 3,582 in any form of expanded notation. Remember, we did 2 forms. Number 2, write the number 89,742 in any form of expanded notation. Number 3, write the expanded notation 700 plus 60 plus 5 as an ordinary number. Number 4, write the expanded notation below as an ordinary number. 6 times 1,000, 7 times 10, 5 times 10,000, 8 times 1,000, and 4 times 1. Then we have rounding off. Round off 52 to the nearest 10. Round off 8,574 to the nearest 100. Round off 9,200 to the nearest 1,000. And round off 29,337 to the nearest 10,000. Boys and girls, the memo is on the next page, but first try to do it on your own before you look at your answers. Now, this has brought us to the end of our lesson. So now me and my friend, we will sanitize again. And before we say goodbye to you, my friend, let's stand. Remember social distancing. We have our sanitizers. We spray it on our hands. I hope you also have got your sanitizers. We rub it in nicely. And once again, all Namibian kids, please stay safe, wear your mask, sanitize, and me and my friend, we will see you guys soon again. Goodbye.
Hi everyone, I'm Joshi. And make sure to always make a helicopter circle, stretching your arms out and spinning around like me. And make sure you're not touching anyone while doing this. Goodbye!
Exclusive, yetu tuliko music.
Oya me pangero. Nambili kwa kulike receipt za Pick and Pay na za lichanga employee code. Tara SMS +36266. Sakuya kwa stumu so don't be surprised. Kapandi na narumbe. Yoku hepasi, wekwa to payslip. 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 Yoku hepasi. Oyingara, Sekelasi, oyingara, payslip. Oyingara. Mureti no do Gana wato gendi tori trapa Stara ramelimba muda tara DJ Maria This Gazla Jaiva oseka kuparuka sikeke ovesike umati omukeke ingira tukurandereko bira makura umone nzira nampoda kupura kona nzira murangezita kunyoka nasira sinolipulira maudiku okosipemba kwagara noipemba wizako amati wono peslem 2 days kavango day 2 days kavango day this time kalikara boka oku ninakwata meskati ninakwata rerekendelo kapati this time kalikara boka oku ninakwata meskati ninakwata rerekendelo kapati we be hustling so long. Malia Mungu comes again. We be hustling so long. Malia Mungu comes again. Usena narume, hey narume.
Scientists are racing to find a COVID-19 vaccine. Creating a vaccine usually takes years, sometimes even decades. More than 150 vaccine candidates are being developed worldwide. Some of the trials furthest ahead have produced encouraging results. Several possible vaccines appear to have produced an immune response with antibodies, T cells, and no serious side effects. Antibodies are protective proteins that fight infections in the body. Some T cells kill infected cells. Others help B cells to make the right antibodies to fight a virus. It's uncertain how long immunity to COVID-19 would last. 6 other human coronaviruses have been known about for years. Natural immunity for the most common 4 is quite short-lived and generally lasts a few years. A COVID-19 vaccine could require booster jabs after years or even months. Scientists are using a variety of methods to make a vaccine. Several human trials are creating vaccines using the genetic code of the virus. Other human trials, and some with animals, are trying more traditional methods, such as using a weakened or inactive virus. This variety might lead to more than one type of vaccine. Having several could actually be very useful, as each one may be more effective among different people. Despite the promising progress, it's not guaranteed an effective and reliable vaccine will be found. If there isn't one, the virus might eventually